It was pouring rain, the kind that soaks you to the bone in seconds, and Tom was trudging home with a soggy grocery bag, his worn-out sneakers squelching with every step. A single dad, barely scraping by. He was used to tough days, but this one felt heavier. His little boy, Ethan, was waiting at home, probably hungry, probably wondering why Dad was late again. Tom's life was a constant juggle, bills, odd jobs, and keeping a smile for his 6-year-old, even when his own heart was breaking. But that night, under the gray, angry sky, something happened that would change everything. A small moment, a single choice, and a mysterious limousine that pulled up to his rundown house hours later. What did Tom do in that rain-soaked moment to bring a stranger's car to his doorstep? Picture this: Tom, 34, with tired eyes and calloused hands, walking down a deserted street. His jacket was more holes than fabric, and the rain stung his face like tiny needles. He was thinking about Ethan, about the promise he'd made to get him a new pair of shoes, even though his wallet was empty. The world felt unfair, like it always kicked him when he was down. But then he saw her, a teenage girl, maybe 16, standing alone under a flickering streetlight. She was drenched, shivering, her thin hoodie no match for the storm. No umbrella, no phone, just standing there like she'd given up. Tom's first thought was to keep walking. He had enough problems, right? Why get involved? But something in her eyes stopped him. Fear, maybe, or desperation. He couldn't just leave her there. "Hey, you okay?" he called out, his voice barely cutting through the rain. She looked up, startled, like she hadn't expected anyone to notice her. Tom didn't know her story, but he knew what it was like to feel alone. He dug into his grocery bag, pulled out his only umbrella, and handed it over. "Take this," he said. "You need it more than me." She hesitated, then grabbed it, muttering a quiet, "Thanks," before disappearing into the night. Tom thought that was it. Just a small act of kindness in a world that rarely returned the favor. He walked home, soaked and shivering, ready to face another night of ramen and bills he couldn't pay. But hours later, as he tucked Ethan into bed, headlights pierced through the cracked blinds of their tiny living room. A sleek, black limousine idled outside his house, a house that looked like it might collapse in the next storm. Tom's heart skipped a beat. Who would come here, to this forgotten corner of the city, in a car like that? He stepped onto the porch, the rain still dripping from his hair, and watched as the tinted window began to roll down. Who was inside, and what did they want with him? Tom's life wasn't always this hard. 5 years ago, he had a steady job at a warehouse, a small but cozy apartment, and a wife who lit up every room. He and Sarah were high school sweethearts, the kind who finished each other's sentences. When Ethan was born, Tom thought he'd finally cracked the code to a good life. But then Sarah got sick. Cancer came fast, and the bills piled faster. By the time she was gone, so was their savings, their apartment, and most of Tom's hope. Now, he and Ethan lived in a one-bedroom house with peeling paint and a leaky roof, in a neighborhood where dreams went to die. Tom picked up odd jobs, fixing cars, cleaning houses, anything to keep Ethan fed and in school. Every night, he'd tell his son stories about superheroes, hoping Ethan wouldn't notice the empty fridge. Ethan was Tom's anchor. At 6, he had his mom's bright blue eyes and a laugh that could make even Tom's worst days bearable. But Ethan was starting to ask questions. Why don't we have a car like other kids' dads? Or when can I get new shoes? Tom would force a smile, say soon, buddy, and hate himself for lying. He felt like he was failing the one person who mattered most. The neighbors weren't much help either. Most kept to themselves, and the ones who didn't were usually trouble. Tom had learned to keep his head down, avoid problems, and focus on surviving. That rainy night, though, something had shifted. Giving that girl his umbrella wasn't just about being nice. It was Tom proving to himself he hadn't lost every piece of who he used to be. He didn't know her name, didn't know why she looked so scared, but her face stuck with him. She wasn't just some kid caught in the rain. There was a story behind those wide, haunted eyes. Had she run away? Was she in trouble? Tom pushed the thoughts away as he walked home, telling himself it wasn't his business. He had enough to worry about, like the overdue electric bill or the fact that Ethan's school shoes were held together with duct tape. Back at home, after Ethan fell asleep, Tom sat on the couch, staring at the cracked ceiling. The rain was still hammering outside, and his wet clothes clung to him like a second skin. He was exhausted, But his mind kept replaying the girl, the umbrella, and that fleeting moment of connection. Why did it feel like it mattered? Then, those headlights lit up his living room. The limousine's engine hummed, low and ominous, like it didn't belong on this street. Tom's stomach twisted. Had he done something wrong? Was this about the girl? He stepped toward the door, heart pounding, as a shadowy figure emerged from the car. Tom's heart thudded so loud he swore the man in the suit could hear it. The rain hadn't let up, drumming on the porch roof like it was counting down to something inevitable. He glanced back through the cracked blinds. Ethan was still asleep, curled up under a thin blanket, safe for now. But leaving him alone, even for a minute, felt like betraying the only thing keeping Tom grounded. "I can't just leave my son," he said, voice shaking but firm. The man in the suit didn't blink. "This won't take long. My employer insists." His tone was calm, but there was an edge, like refusal wasn't an option. Tom's gut screamed to slam the door, but the limo's open door and that shadowy figure inside pulled at him like a magnet. What did they know about the girl? And why did it feel like his whole life was teetering on this moment? He grabbed his jacket, still damp from the rain, and followed the man to the car, every step heavier than the last. The limo's interior smelled of leather and money, a world Tom didn't belong in. The figure in the back was a woman, older, maybe in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a face that held secrets. She wore an expensive coat, but her hands were clasped tight, betraying worry. "Mr. Riley," she said, her voice low but commanding. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into." Tom's stomach dropped. "I just gave her an umbrella," he said, almost pleading. "What's this about?" The woman leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "That girl you helped, she's not just my daughter. She's running from something dangerous. And now, because of you, they might know where she is." Tom's mind spun. Dangerous? They? He pictured the girl's scared eyes, the way she'd bolted into the night. Had he accidentally tipped someone off? "I didn't tell anyone anything," he said, panic creeping into his voice. The woman's expression softened, but only slightly. "You didn't have to. Your kindness was enough to make waves." She paused, glancing at the man in the suit, who was now watching the street like he expected trouble. "We need your help, Tom, but it comes with a cost." His breath caught. Help? Cost? He was a broke single dad, not some hero. What could they possibly want from him? The limo started moving, gliding through the rain-soaked streets, and Tom's pulse raced faster. He didn't know where they were going, but every second took him further from Ethan. The woman's next words hit like a punch. "If you don't do exactly what I say, your son might pay the price." Tom's blood ran cold. He stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in, as the limo turned down a dark, unfamiliar road. The limo's hum filled the silence as Tom's mind reeled. The woman's threat about Ethan burned in his chest, but before he could speak, she slid a photo across the seat. It was the girl from the rain, smiling in a school uniform, but next to her was Ethan, grinning at a playground. Tom's heart stopped. "How do you have this?" he whispered, voice cracking. The woman's eyes were cold now. "Your son knows my daughter. They go to the same school. She wasn't just some stranger you helped, Tom. She was running from people who've been watching her, and now they're watching you." His hands shook, the photo slipping to the floor. "Ethan involved? How?" The girl had seemed random, a fleeting moment, but now it felt like a trap closing around him. "What do they want?" he choked out. The woman leaned closer, her voice a hiss. "Something you have, Tom. Something you don't even know you're carrying." His mind blanked. He had nothing, barely enough to buy groceries. What could he possibly have that dangerous people wanted? The limo slowed, and headlights flashed behind them. Someone was following. The limo screeched to a stop in an empty warehouse lot, rain hammering the roof. Tom's heart pounded as the woman's words echoed. Something he was carrying, something dangerous people wanted. He was just a broke dad. Nothing about this made sense. The headlights behind them grew brighter, and the man in the suit barked, "Stay here." He jumped out, gun drawn, as another car skidded into the lot. Tom's panic surged. Ethan was home alone, and now he was trapped in some high-stakes game. The woman grabbed his arm, her eyes wild. "The umbrella, Tom. It's not what you think." Before he could process, the limo door flew open. It was the girl from the rain, soaked and frantic, clutching the umbrella. "They're coming," she gasped. Tom's confusion exploded. Wasn't she the one running? Suddenly, she pressed the umbrella's handle, and a tiny chip popped out. "This has evidence," she whispered. "Proof my dad's company is corrupt. They'll kill for it." Tom's blood ran cold. He'd handed her that umbrella, and now it was a ticking bomb tying him to a corporate conspiracy. Shouts erupted outside. The man in the suit fired at the approaching car, but a bullet grazed his shoulder, and he crumpled. The woman screamed, "Drive." Tom, acting on instinct, slid into the driver's seat, floored the gas, and the limo lurched forward. Tires squealed as he swerved through the lot, the girl clutching the chip, her mother yelling directions. Headlights chased them, closer every second. Tom's mind raced. Ethan, his only priority. He had to end this and get home. They hit a dead-end alley. No way out. The chasing car blocked them in, and two men with guns stepped out. Tom's hands shook, but the girl whispered, "Give me the chip." He hesitated, then handed it over. She smashed it under her heel. "It's a decoy," she said, grinning. "The real evidence is already with the police." Tom's jaw dropped. The girl had played everyone. The men outside froze as sirens wailed in the distance, red and blue lights flashing. The woman sobbed in relief, but Tom's stomach twisted. The girl leaned close, her voice low. "Check your son's backpack when you get home. You're not out of this yet." What had Ethan been carrying all this time? The police lights flooded the alley, and the men from the chasing car dropped their guns, hands raised as officers swarmed in. Tom's heart still raced, the girl's final words burning in his mind. "Check your son's backpack." He barely registered the woman thanking him or the girl. "Lila," he learned, hugging her mother. The man in the suit, clutching his grazed shoulder, gave Tom a nod, as if saying he'd earned their trust. But Tom didn't care about their gratitude. He just wanted to get home to Ethan. The police escorted him back, and the whole drive, his mind spun. What was in Ethan's backpack? How had his 6-year-old gotten tangled in this? Back at his rundown house, Tom rushed inside, his wet shoes slipping on the floor. Ethan was still asleep, his tiny chest rising and falling under the blanket. Tom's hands trembled as he grabbed Ethan's worn-out backpack from the corner. He unzipped it, expecting something dramatic, a flash drive, a note, anything tied to Lila's conspiracy. Instead, he found a crumpled drawing. It was Ethan's, in bright crayon, a picture of him and Lila at school, holding hands under an umbrella, labeled "My Friend." A folded note slipped out, in Lila's handwriting. "Thank you for helping me, Ethan's dad. You're a hero." Tom's throat tightened. Lila hadn't just been running from danger. She'd been watching out for Ethan, too. The next morning, Tom sat Ethan down, the drawing between them. "You know Lila from school?" he asked gently. Ethan's eyes lit up. "Yeah, she's nice. She gave me a cookie once." Tom smiled, but it faded fast. Lila's note explained she'd hidden the real evidence, a tiny memory card, in Ethan's backpack weeks ago, knowing no one would suspect a kid. She'd retrieved it that night in the rain, but never told Tom to keep him safe. The police had it now, and Lila's father's company was under investigation. Tom felt a mix of relief and anger. He'd been a pawn, but he'd also protected his son without knowing it. Days later, a delivery arrived. A new pair of shoes for Ethan and a check from Lila's mother, enough to cover rent for a year. Tom stared at it, torn. It felt like charity, but it was also a chance to give Ethan stability. He cashed it, promising himself he'd keep fighting for his boy. As he tucked Ethan in that night, telling another superhero story, Tom realized something. Kindness, even a small act like giving an umbrella, could ripple further than he'd ever imagined. He hugged Ethan a little tighter, vowing to never let fear stop him from doing what was right. Sometimes, the smallest choices make you a hero, not just to strangers, but to the ones who matter most.